When I found out my daughter's husband partied on a yacht while she fought for her life. The words echoed in Sarah's mind like a siren's wail, sharp and piercing. Just hours ago, she held her daughter's trembling hand, feeling the weight of fear in the thick hospital air. It was supposed to be a simple procedure, something routine. But now, as she stared out at the shimmering ocean, she felt a storm breaching the calm surface. Was it fate or sheer, twisted coincidence that her daughter's husband, Ethan, was jetting around in a private yacht, tossing back drinks, while their world crumbled? The town had always whispered about the wealth on that yacht, glittering champagne glasses, the laughter of strangers, the din of a party that contrasted her daughter's desperate silence in the hospital room. Sarah's gut churned. She thought of the rumors, the way the glitterati glided into her daughter's life with promises of excitement and adventure. Little did she know they'd usher in disaster instead. Left with an undeniable dread, she couldn't shake the vision of the doting husband morphing into a careless partygoer, abandoning his vows and standing at the cusp of betrayal. When Sarah had discovered the yacht's name scrolling through social media, the siren's call, her breath hitched. It felt almost poetic, cruelly so. Each sip Ethan took was another beat of her daughter's heart that struggled to find its rhythm, a painful plunge into despair. There he was, a king among the waves, blissfully dancing the night away while his wife lay helpless. The irony twisted like a knife in the pit of her stomach. How could he be so oblivious? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. It was the sound of laughter through digital screens that sent a fresh wave of fury crashing over her. She imagined the clinking of ice in glasses, the glimmering lights, and the carefree energy that seemed so devoid of her daughter's fight for breath. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest as she caught the sight of families sitting just a few doors down, sharing whispers and light-hearted moments. Didn't they understand? How could they gather and laugh when heartbreak lingered just a room away? Her hand trembled as she reached for the phone. Should she call him? Confront him? A million thoughts raced through her mind. Would he answer? Would he even care? All of it hurt. The betrayal felt like a familiar echo, a personal wound that had never truly healed. Would he rush back, or was he far too lost in his glamorous escapade? The walls felt like they were closing in as she fought the tightening lump in her throat. How much longer would she wait for answers? Suddenly, the ringing of her phone startled her, heart racing as she dared to hope. But it was only a text. Ethan, another photo. This time, he stood on the deck, a smirk on his face, the sun setting behind him, oblivious to the storm brewing back home. That easy smile sent a shiver down her spine. In that moment, she made a vow, she would uncover the truth. No matter how deep, no matter the cost. And as the ocean roared outside, Sarah knew the fight was far from over. What would this discovery reveal? What lay hidden beneath the surface? The tension clung thick in the air, a promise of confrontations waiting to ignite. The hospital room felt stifling. The muted beeping of machines was a constant reminder of her daughter's fragile state. Sarah couldn't keep still, feelings of anger and betrayal clawing at her heart. Ethan was on that yacht, living his best life, while her daughter fought a battle for survival. How could a man choose extravagance over his wife? The ocean called out to her, its waves crashing like a distant echo of her pain. Glancing at her phone again, she braced herself for another heart-wrenching glimpse into Ethan's world. But this time was different. The notification flashed a video. Without thinking, she pressed play, her breath hitching as she waited for the screen to illuminate. Laughter erupted. Music blared. The video showed Ethan, cocktail in hand, twirling a glamorous woman with cascading hair. Her laughter rang hollow in Sarah's ears, like shards of glass falling from a broken bottle. "You're just a piece of the past now, babe," Ethan said, words drowning in another chorus of cheers. His eyes sparkled, the kind of look that sent nausea swirling in the pit of her stomach. This wasn't just partying, this was betrayal laid bare, and she could feel it slicing through her like cold steel. "How could you?" she whispered, the shame dissipating into anger coursing through her veins. What had he done to their vows? What kind of monster danced while his wife lay fighting for her very breath? She felt a surge of adrenaline. She couldn't let this slide. This was about more than a party, it was about loyalty, love, and honor. Sarah stood up, resolve steeling her spine. She would confront him. The thought rushed through her like wildfire. She needed answers, and she wouldn't rest until she had them. As she dialed his number, the phone rang incessantly, noise that echoed her pounding heart. Her fingers tightened, the thin fabric of her despair morphing into unwavering determination. "Come on, pick up." Just as she was about to hang up, she heard an answering voice on the line, slurred and carefree. "Hey, babe. You miss me?" He slurred, his tone chilling her to the bone. She inhaled sharply, the lump in her throat growing heavy. How could he sound so nonchalant? "Ethan. Where are you?" she demanded, fury lacing her voice. "Oh, just catching some sun and having a blast. It's amazing out here." His laugh was obnoxious, a mocking sons of music in her distress. "Your wife is in the hospital," she yelled, every word filled with raw emotion. "Do you even care?" There was a silence. A strange, unsettling quiet that felt even more damning than 100 lies. She could almost hear the gears turning in his mind, recognition hitting him. "Wait, what?" She swallowed hard, desperation twisting into strength. "You're on that yacht, dancing with strangers, while your wife is fighting for her life. Do you understand?" His voice suddenly turned serious. I didn't know. Nobody told me. I should have known. You're too busy drowning in your own sea of selfishness. That's not fair." He protested, the defensiveness cracking through. "Not fair?" She gasped, fury igniting her heart even hotter. "What's not fair is how you abandoned her. Her life hangs in the balance, and you decide to party. It's just a misunderstanding. I'll come back," he hurriedly pleaded. She cut him off. "You've been misunderstanding everything since the moment you decided to run away. Don't you dare talk about coming back. You need to face what you've done." With that, Sarah ended the call, the silence afterwards deafening. She couldn't believe what had happened. Would he actually come back? Would he even understand his mistakes? But before she could gather her thoughts, a loud crash echoed in the hallway, drawing her attention. The voices grew louder as she stood frozen in disbelief. The door to her daughter's room swung open, revealing a nurse whose expression was a mix of urgency and dread. "Mrs. Thompson, you need to come quick." Her heart dropped. What had happened now? A new wave of panic surged through her as she raced down the corridor, uncertainty twisting her stomach into knots. What could go wrong this time? As she rushed forward, the reality of her situation hit her hard. This was about to unravel in ways she never dreamed possible. What awaited her behind that door? Questions rushed through her mind, each one more terrifying than the last. Pushing her way through the chaotic hallway, Sarah's pulse raced. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and she could barely hear the frantic whispers of medical staff around her. Her focus narrowed to the urgency behind the nurse's eyes. "Right this way," the nurse urged, leading Sarah to her daughter's room. A cold dread settled in her stomach like a stone. What could be happening now? As they entered, the sight made her gasp. Her daughter, Lily, was surrounded by doctors and equipment, a flurry of motion that sent panic surging through Sarah's chest. The machines bleeped erratically, a chorus of distress echoing in the small space. And 4 dripped steadily, oxygen masks were being adjusted. Is she okay? Sarah's voice trembled, almost breaking as she stepped closer, her heart clawing at her throat. The nurse turned, her face strained. We're doing everything we can. She had a sudden drop in her vitals. It's critical. No, Sarah felt her breath hitch, waves of fear crashing over her. This couldn't be happening. Not when she had just called Ethan, not when she had just fought to stay strong. What do you mean, critical? You have to help her. The doctor turned, her gaze grave. We need to stabilize her. We'll keep you updated. Please step outside for a moment. What? No. Sarah cried, digging her nails into the fabric of her pants. I can't leave her. Ma, the doctor said, her voice firm yet sympathetic. You can't be in here right now. We need space. With her heart racing and adrenaline pumping, Sarah backed away, each step a battle against the tide of helplessness threatening to engulf her. She stepped out into the hallway and pressed her back against the wall, gasping for air. She could feel the cold sweat starting to bead on her forehead. Ethan. He was still out there, oblivious, dancing on that damned yacht. A surge of fury ignited again, hot and pure, mixing with her dread. Suddenly, the nurse sidled back to her. Mrs. Thompson, it's important your husband. He needs to be here. Right now. Ethan will come, she said, but uncertainty gnawed at her. What if he didn't? What if he chose to ignore her request? Would he really stay lost in his lavish worlds of parties when his daughter was fighting for her life? A deep, primal need for him to feel the weight of his neglect washed over her. He needed to realize the gravity of his choices, the stark contrast between his lifestyle and the reality they were living. You don't understand, she said, a new determination blooming. I need to know if he even cares. Then you need to reach him. Time is of the essence, the nurse said quietly before walking away, carrying the urgency with her. A thought pierced through Sarah's panic. This wasn't just a showdown over love or loyalty anymore. This was about a life hanging in the balance. Should she bring him back? Despite everything he had done, did she have the strength to fight for their daughter alone? She pulled out her phone, fingers trembling as she navigated to his contact. What would she say? How do you reach someone so lost in his own darkness? But as she prepared to hit call, her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a notification, it was an unknown number. A chill crept down her spine. Was it him? Hello? She answered cautiously, her heart hammering against her ribs. I know where he is. A voice, distorted and breathless, shot through the line with a sense of urgency that made her blood run cold. What? Who is this? They're all in danger. You need to come here now. Sarah's mind raced. What did this mean? Did they bring real danger into their lives? Where was here? Wait. What are you talking about? She stammered, but the line went dead, leaving a hollow sound in her ear. Questions buzzed like angry bees in her brain. Who was this? What kind of danger? She had a choice, it hit her hard. Would she search for Ethan first, potentially losing precious time, or follow this unknown lead? The clock was ticking. With her heart pounding and panic clouding her judgment, she stepped toward the exit, ready to face whatever danger awaited her. This time, it wasn't just for her daughter. It was for the truth, whatever it might cost her. Where was this mystery caller leading her? Was it a trap or a lifeline? The lobby felt oddly suffocating as Sarah pushed through the automatic doors, the rush of night air barely cooling the fire of her anxiety. The chaos of the hospital faded, replaced by the eerie quiet of the street outside. She took a deep breath, her chest constricting with a mix of fear and resolve. Come on, think, she muttered to herself, scanning the area. The unknown caller had stirred something primal inside her, a fear that drew her to the emergency, but also a strange hope that perhaps there was more to the story. What was lurking beneath the surface? She had to find this elusive lead. The voice had promised danger but also a path to Ethan, and that was worth the risk. Charging down the street, she felt her heart race with renewed determination. The city lights blurred together as she sprinted toward the corner, desperate for answers, pulling her phone from her pocket to try dialing Ethan again. No answer. The fragments of anxiety frayed her thoughts. Would he even care enough to pick up? As she rounded the corner, she spotted a shadowy figure leaning against a lamppost. It was hard to tell if they were waiting for someone or just killing time, but something in the way they watched her sent another chill up her spine. "Excuse me," she shouted, hoping that maybe, just maybe, this was fate. "Did you make a call just now? About Ethan?" The figure turned slightly, and she caught a glimpse of familiar sharp features. It was a face she recognized. "Sarah," he breathed, the shadows playing tricks on the angles of his jaw. "Danny?" Her heart sank. Danny, Ethan's best friend, stood there with a clenched jaw, pain flickering in his eyes. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," he said, voice low and urgent. "It's not just about Lily." For a brief moment, Sarah felt her anger rise. Not again. Another reminder that Ethan's world was laced with shadows and secrets. "I don't have time for games," she shot back, the edge of her voice slicing through the darkness. "Lily is fighting for her life." "I know," Danny said, stepping closer, a nervous energy crackling between them. "And that's why you need to hear me out. Ethan, he's in a mess. This isn't just a party. There are things happening that you don't understand." She felt a flicker of hope, like a match striking in the dark. "What do you mean?" "There are people involved. Dangerous people. They're not just partiers, they're criminals, and Ethan, he might be in over his head, Sarah." Fear flooded her system again, this time mixed with a creeping dread. "What are you saying? Is he in danger?" Danny hesitated. "He could be, but what's worse is that if he continues with this, it could endanger Lily too." The words hit like a blow. Sarah's breath caught. "What did you mean by that?" "Just listen to me," he said, urgency tinging his voice. "You have to trust me. I've got a way to get us to him, but we need to move. Now." The clock wasn't just ticking, it was racing. The weight of her daughter's fragile state pressed on her like a vice. She had no choice, she had to follow Danny. What if this leads to a trap? She asked, every survival instinct flaring inside. "We'll face it together," he said, reaching out, stopping her from turning back. "You don't have to do this alone." She stared into his eyes and saw the sincerity, but doubt swirled in her mind. Was he truly there for the right reasons? Or was this another layer of the web surrounding Ethan? "Okay," she finally relented, her heart pounding. "Let us go." As they turned to leave, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping blindly into danger. What lay ahead? A confrontation with Ethan? A deeper unraveling of secrets? The air crackled with tension, and with every step into the darkness, she felt the rushing tide of uncertainty drawing closer. What awaited them at the end of this path? Would she find Ethan, or would she uncover something much darker? The night swallowed them as they navigated through twisted alleys, the pulse of the city fading into a surreal backdrop of silence. Each step felt surreal, as if she were moving through a dream, or rather, a nightmare. Sarah couldn't shake the flickers of doubt. Trusting Danny felt risky, he'd been part of Ethan's world, after all, a world drenched in mystery and danger. "What's the plan?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Danny glanced around before leaning in, lowering his voice. "There's a place where they might be. An abandoned warehouse a few blocks away. I overheard Ethan talking about it before things escalated." "Things escalated?" Sarah pushed the words out, confusion mixing with her agitation. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, searching her eyes for understanding. "The parties. The drugs. There were rumors, dangerous people getting involved. I didn't think much of it until now. But Ethan he's tangled up in it. A frigid shiver ran down her spine. If he's knee-deep in this mess, then how can we help him? Danny ran a hand through his hair, panic flickering in his expression. We have to get him out. We can't let him do something he'll regret. Or get hurt. She shot back, her voice rising. Or worse. They hurried through the alley, shadows dancing around them, their footsteps echoing against the crumbling brick walls. Each sound felt magnified, the danger clawing at her throat as they approached the warehouse. Stay close, Danny cautioned, glancing back at her with wide eyes. If anyone sees us, trust me, I know how to disappear, she snapped, but the truth tugged at her. She wasn't so sure. The towering structure loomed ahead, shrouded in darkness, its entrance ominous and silent. A broken neon sign flickered above, casting eerie shadows of green and red on the pavement. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Sarah could feel it pressing in, making it hard to breathe. With a deep breath, she stepped toward the door, its rusted metal cold against her palm. It felt like a graveyard of memories and secrets, a place where everything could come crashing down. Danny crouched near the door, peering inside. I can't see much, but it looks clear. Clear. Sarah echoed, disbelief lacing her tone. Do you even know what that means? That place could be crawling with people. We don't have time to waste. If we don't move now, who knows what will happen? He shot back with frantic urgency. Just as she was about to protest, a loud crash resonated from within, sending an icy pang of fear slicing through her. They exchanged a glance, an unspoken agreement passing between them. Okay, she whispered, adrenaline rushing. We go in, but we have to stay on guard. As they slipped inside the warehouse, the darkness enveloped them. Shadows loomed large, industrial machinery casting long, distorted shapes against the walls. The air reeked of rust and decay, sending a hollow feeling through her stomach. Ethan! Sarah called out, her voice echoing against the gloom, ricocheting off metal and brick. Shoo! Don't draw attention, Danny hissed, gripping her arm tightly. We need to be careful. But the echo of her call hung in the air like a fog of uncertainty. What if Ethan heard her? What if he didn't? More sounds pierced the silence, a distant murmur, laughter, and then a loud shout. A sinking feeling lodged itself in Sarah's chest. What if he's in danger? She whispered, dread pooling in her gut and eye. In the dim light, they crept deeper into the warehouse, the muffled sounds growing clearer. But hidden in the shadows, another sound caught her attention. The unmistakable weight of footsteps. Something was coming and they had to be ready. Suddenly, the laughter turned to shouts, the atmosphere shifting, and a jolt of adrenaline surged through her veins. Were they too late? As she turned the corner, her heart raced, pounding in her ears thunderously. With every second that passed, she felt the walls closing in. Would she find Ethan, or had they run straight into a trap? The confrontation loomed. Whatever lay ahead, it was approaching fast. What awaited them in the darkness? The narrow corridor stretched ahead, bathed in shadows and uncertainty. Sarah felt each heartbeat echoing against the cold concrete walls, as if the very building itself were alive, holding its breath. She leaned against the rough surface for a moment, steadying herself as dread clawed at her throat. Stay close, Danny whispered, his voice barely a tremor against the growing chaos behind them. We have to keep moving. They ducked around a rusted metal beam, crouching low, the air thick with dust and stale remnants of long-forgotten labor. Sarah could hear voices now, sharp words laced with anger that sent a chill dancing down her spine. She had never been one for confrontation, but this was different. This was Ethan. Suddenly, a door slammed shut several feet away, reverberating through the warehouse like a gunshot. Danny's eyes widened, and Sarah could feel the panic radiating off him like heat. They had to find Ethan before it was too late. Is that him? Danny pointed toward the flickering light spilling from a gap beneath a nearby door. They slid toward it, hearts pounding, and pressed their ears against the jagged wood. At first, all that met them was the sound of jangling keys and more muffled voices, but then you can't just bail. Not after what we agreed. That voice. It was Ethan's, time S up. You think we're just going to wait for your pathetic ass to screw around? Another voice reverberated with authority. Sarah's chest tightened. Let him go. She shouted, her voice exploding in the silence. What was she doing? It was reckless, but fear for Ethan propelled her, stronger than reason. What are you doing? Danny's panic flared more brightly than the flickering lights. We can't just call out like that. Ignoring him, Sarah reached for the doorknob, twisting it with desperate urgency. The door creaked open uncomfortably slow, revealing a room thick with shadows, the few beams of light illuminating hostile faces. An imposing figure stood with his back to them. Ethan knelt on the floor, hands gripping his hair, visibly shaken. Ethan! She cried, fear morphing into determination. He looked up, eyes wide, as if the very sight of her was a lifeline in a storm. But before he could respond, the imposing figure turned, revealing a twisted smirk that painted his features with malice. You shouldn't have come here, he spat, stepping closer, and dread washed over Sarah like ice water. She gripped the doorframe, trying to anchor herself against the fear clawing at her. Danny moved to push her back, but it was too late. The aura of danger was palpable, wrapping around them like a heavy fog. Look what we have here, a little rescue mission gone wrong. Who are you? Danny demanded, taking a step forward. The smirk morphed into a grin. You're in my territory now. Little Miss and her boy toy are about to learn a lesson about poking their noses where they don't belong. An ominous tremor slid through Sarah's veins as Ethan, now standing, stared defiantly at the stranger. I want to be your pawn. This ends tonight. Does it? The man laughed, low and deadly. It sent chills cascading down Sarah's spine. What does that mean? She whispered, fear tightening her chest as she locked eyes with Ethan. But the man stepped forward, blocking her line of sight, and with a swift motion, shoved Ethan aside. You can save him, but it's going to cost you. Heart racing, Sarah felt the world around her shift. They were trapped in a twisted game of power and darkness. The shadows felt thicker, almost alive, and with each moment, the stakes rose impossibly high. Danny moved beside her, ready for anything, but with a desperate need to protect both her and Ethan coursing through her, doubts began to swirl like a tempest. Could she save him from this nightmare? Reality hit hard, there was no going back. But what would she have to sacrifice? Just then, a loud crash echoed from the back of the warehouse. All eyes turned toward the sound, and in that frenzied moment, Sarah recognized desperation fuel, a choice she never wanted to make. But that choice was coming, quick and unavoidable. Would it lead to their freedom or their doom? The room was thick with tension, every breath weighing heavy as shadows danced around them. The stranger's gaze narrowed on Sarah, teeth glinting like daggers. You think you can just waltz in here and reclaim your boyfriend? It doesn't work that way, sweetheart. Ethan pushed himself back up, fists clenched. You don't own me. This ends here. Let her go. Bravery doesn't suit you, Ethan. But don't worry, he said, taking another predatory step forward, I'm here to give you a chance. You can save her. A chill crept up Sarah's spine at the way he looked at her, like she was merely a bargaining chip in a game she never wanted to play. Fear mingled with the rising anger that surged in her chest. What do you want? She challenged, though her voice trembled. Was there a way out? The man leaned closer, the shadows swallowing him whole for an instant, before stepping back into the light. Let's make this interesting. I'll let her go if you're willing to do something for me. Not a chance, Danny snapped, adrenaline providing a swell of courage. But Sarah could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. What's it going to be, Ethan? The man asked, feigning interest, but anticipation crackled in the air. Your rescue mission or her freedom? Choose wisely. The words hung in the space between them like a storm cloud ready to strike. Time seemed to stretch, and Sarah's mind raced. What was the price? Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from the back of the warehouse, interrupting the tense standoff. All heads snapped in that direction. A group of men appeared, their faces obscured by shadows but the glint of firearms catching the flickering light. "Looks like backup is here," the man exclaimed, a wild glee lighting his features. This just got a whole lot more complicated. Fear blasted through Sarah. The chaos was growing, and whatever tenuous control they had was slipping through their fingers. "We have to get out now," she whispered urgently to Danny, but the weight of the situation kept her frozen. Ethan's expression shifted, calculating. "You won't hurt her. Not if you want to make a deal." "Well, I can't say I'm not tempted," the man chuckled darkly. "But I prefer to make a statement. It seems reckless youth deserves a reckoning." The newcomers fanned out, surrounding the room with the swagger that spoke of prior violence. Sarah's heart raced. The reality was harsh, they were outnumbered and outgunned. Danny cursed under his breath. "We need a plan. Think. There must be a way. I'll buy us time," Ethan interjected boldly, determination in his eyes. "You have to get Sarah out of here." "No. You can't," she started but was cut off by the dull thud of the intruders approaching. "Too late to back down now, sweetheart," the man taunted, his men closing in with a predator's glee. "Don't you see? This is just the beginning of your lesson in survival. It's your move, Ethan." Sarah's world was spinning, every heartbeat pounding like a war drum. "Ethan, please," but his expression had shifted to fierce resolve. He wouldn't back down, not now. Suddenly the lights flickered wildly, plunging them into darkness for a split second. A distraction, a chance. "Now!" Danny shouted, grabbing Sarah's arm. They stumbled toward the nearest exit, but terror held them fast. Would they escape? The warehouse door swung open with a crash, revealing a blinding light that flooded the room. Sarah paused, hesitation creeping back in as volatile chaos surged around them. Ethan's voice erupted through the turmoil, "Go. Get out." The air crackled with tension, and as she turned to run, Sarah felt a surge of panic and dread. What would she leave behind? The blinding light bathed everything in stark relief, but even then, she could sense the danger lurking behind them, the threat looming larger than ever. In that heartbeat, she gasped. The stakes had never been so high, and as she lunged toward freedom, she could only hope she hadn't lost Ethan forever. Just then, a gunshot rang out, echoing through the darkness. Had she just made the biggest mistake of her life? The sharp crack of gunfire echoed in Sarah's ears, her heart racing in response. She instinctively ducked, pulling Danny down with her as the moment seemed to stretch, every second heavy with dread. The world around them narrowed, the bright light at the door now a glaring spotlight highlighting their fear and uncertainty. "What do we do?" Danny whispered urgently, his eyes wide with desperation. Sarah could feel his unease radiating off him, the tension coiling tighter. "Keep moving," she urged, forcing herself to her feet. She spotted a narrow corridor off to the side, a thin sliver of hope that they might slip away unnoticed. Before they could dart toward it, a heavy footstep filled the space, followed by the man's voice slicing through the air. "Where do you think you're going?" The sudden shift in his tone sent a shiver down Sarah's spine, and she locked eyes with Danny. Their shared fear spoke volumes, and she could see him calculating their next move. "Grab my hand," Danny shouted, and without thinking, she took it and they bolted towards the corridor. Every instinct screamed for her to run faster as they sprinted into the darkened passageway. Her breath came in jagged gasps, and every pounding heartbeat echoed ominously in the silence that swallowed them. Just as they reached the end, the hallway opened up into a small storage area cluttered with old crates and junk. Danny pushed her behind one, their backs pressed tightly against the splintered wood, heartbeats matching the rhythm of the chaos outside. "Did we lose them?" Danny panted, his face etched with tension. "I don't know," Sarah replied, craning her neck to peer out past the edge of the crate. Lights flickered behind them, and muffled shouting filtered through the air, a promise that they weren't out of danger yet. She felt Danny's arm tighten around her, a protective instinct that grounded her even in the peril of the moment. "What was that back there?" he asked, the fear returning, invading his steady tone. They were going to hurt Ethan," Sarah breathed, the reality smashing into her with horrid clarity. The thought pulled her spirit down into a pit of dread. What if he... "Don't think like that," he interrupted firmly, squeezing her shoulder. "We'll figure this out. We have to." Just then, the door to their hiding spot creaked open, the heavy boots of the men thudding against the ground as they entered, their voices low yet menacing. "Split up. Search every corner," the man Sarah had seen before commanded. "I want them found. No loose ends." "God, they're right here," Danny breathed, his eyes wide with terror. The seconds became hours as they held their breath, pressing deeper into the shadows. It felt like the air had been sucked from the room. With every hushed command echoing nearby, she could sense their predator-like instincts honing in closer. Suddenly, the crates beside them rattled as someone shoved against them, and Sarah's body tensed. The thundering of her heart almost drowned out the approaching footsteps. "Are you ready?" Danny whispered, his voice barely a tickle in the silence. "For what?" Sarah felt another wave of anxiety wash over her as she contemplated their options. "I don't know. But we need to make a move. They're getting closer." The sound of footsteps drew nearer, and she could see the outline of a figure through the narrow slits in the wooden crates. The darkness concealed them for now, but for how long? A desperate plan formed quickly in her mind, the alternatives churning like a storm inside her head. "On three," she whispered, adrenaline flooding her veins. 1, 2, 3. They burst out from behind the crates, a wild surge of energy as they lunged for the door, ready to fight for their escape. But as they crossed the threshold, horror struck them both. The figure standing outside wasn't just the enemy, it was Ethan, bloodied and bruised, and still standing. "Get back!" he shouted, eyes wide with panic, just as another gunshot rang out, illuminating the room in an explosion of chaos. Would they rally together in time, or was this moment going to seal their fate? Ethan's shout rang in the air, slicing through the chaos. Sarah's heart sank when she saw him, his battered body swaying on the brink of collapse. Ethan had always been the strongest of them, his fierce spirit a constant source of comfort. Now, blood trickled down his face, darkening his hair, and his eyes were wide with pure terror. "Ethan!" Danny called out, voice laced with urgency. But the noise around them drowned out the plea, plunging them deeper into a nightmare they couldn't escape. A second gunshot detonated in the space, the sound ricocheting violently off the walls. Sarah felt every fiber of her being scream for them to move. This wasn't the time to hesitate. She grabbed Danny's hand, her stomach knotting at the thought of losing him, of losing Ethan. "Go!" Ethan roared, his voice thunderous despite his injuries. "Run!" They didn't need to be told twice. Sarah plunged forward, dragging Danny along as they dashed onto the open floor, adrenaline surging through their veins like wildfire. "Where's the exit?" Danny shouted, glancing back at Ethan, who remained frozen in place, trembling but standing his ground. "There." Sarah pointed at a door on the far side, the last flicker of hope illuminated by a weak overhead light. But it felt miles away. With their pursuers now alert, every step echoed like a countdown to their demise. Behind them, heavy footsteps pounded against the floor, a chorus of grunts urging them to run faster. Shadows darted across their path as men surged from corners, weapons raised, ready to strike. "Keep moving," Sarah barked. A rush of fear fueled her legs, propelling her forward. Ethan managed to stumble after them, grimacing with each step, but desperation kept him upright. "I won't leave you." "Ethan, no. Get down." Danny shouted as they ducked just in time to avoid another hail of bullets. Sarah felt the cold breeze of one whizzing past her head, a reminder that life was hanging by a thread. They weaved through crates and debris, navigating a labyrinth of old junk. For a moment, they stumbled into a narrow alley between towering stacks, breathless and vulnerable. The world around them was a cacophony of shouting men and chaos, but in that brief moment of silence, Sarah felt true fear, the kind that paralyzed her body and muddled her thoughts. What if we don't make it? Danny's voice trembled, the panic evident in his eyes. We have to. She insisted, grasping his arm tightly. We can't think like that. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed behind them. A crate toppled over, declaring their location. They had no time. They surged back into the open, sprinting with reckless abandon as they reached the exit door, its rusting frame creaking under the pressure, but just as Danny reached for the handle, it swung open violently, slamming him back against the wall. The men from before poured in, faces twisted in malicious glee. Sarah gasped as she felt her heart plummet, everything spiraling. What do we do now? Fight! Ethan snarled, determination igniting despite his injuries. He grabbed a nearby metal pipe, holding it like a weapon as Danny quickly scrambled to his feet. But before they could prepare themselves for confrontation, another figure stepped into view and Sarah's breath caught as she recognized him. It was the man from the beginning, the one whose voice she still heard haunting her dreams. Ready to end this? He sneered, eyes glinting in the dim light. Her world crumbled. Would they stand together against the overwhelming odds, or was this the final moment of their fight for survival? Get ready! Ethan shouted, gripping the pipe tighter. And as the tension thickened, it felt like they stood on the edge of oblivion filled with dread, yet the smallest flicker of hope remained. But would it be enough? Just as the chaos threatened to consume them entirely, a distant siren wailed in the background, a promising sound that could either be their savior or the harbinger of doom. What awaited them in the seconds to come? The confusion of the warehouse echoed harshly against the thundering of Sarah's heart. Just as she thought they were cornered, the sound of sirens pierced through the chaos. A powerful wave of hope crashed over her, colliding against the despair that clung tightly to her every breath. Don't back down! Ethan shouted, raising the pipe high in defiance. The group around them hesitated, exchanging anxious glances as if those sirens whispered a warning they couldn't ignore. Sarah took a breath, sensing the moment shift. Could they really turn this around? Danny's eyes were wild, darting between the advancing men and the glowing promise of the siren's lights creeping closer. We need to move, he urged, drawing on every ounce of courage. Run! Ethan yelled again, swinging the pipe wildly toward the nearest man, a cacophony of clangs ringing out as the blow landed. The force sent one thug stumbling back, creating a split-second opening. Go! With an instinct born from desperation, Sarah lunged forward, Danny close behind. They surged past the men who had moments ago thought they held power, shoving through the mass of chaos, feet pounding against the ground. Ethan staggered behind them, fighting against the pain gnawing at him. They could hear frantic shouts behind, a sense of urgency swelling in the air. Time was running out, but they pushed on, every step feeling heavier. As they neared the exit, the main doors crashed open, and two uniformed officers charged in, guns drawn. Everybody freeze! One shouted, their authority slicing through the air like lightning. In that moment, everything fell silent. The tension snapped like a taut string. Over here! Danny cried, waving his arm, blood pounding in his ears. The men, their faces twisted in surprise and anger, turned as the officers stormed in, fists flying, and a chaos of shouting ensued. It was their chance, a flicker of salvation that threatened to slide away. Grabbing Ethan's arm, Sarah yanked him forward, the urgency to escape flooding her veins. We have to go now! She screamed, pushing him ahead of her, those sirens still roaring in the distance, a constant reminder of help that was finally here. As they burst through the exit, the cool night air hit them like a refreshing splash of water. They were outside, free, but freedom felt distant as shouts and sounds of scuffles exploded behind them. Hysteria filled the space, the waves crashing against their newfound hope. "Get into the car. Now," Danny urged, his voice firm enough to cut through the chaos. They were close, so close to safety. They stumbled to Danny's rusted vehicle parked against the curb, the crimson lights reflecting like stars dancing on the water. Sarah's fingers fumbled with the door handle, the weight of what had just happened crashing down. There was no time to dwell on the horrifying moments. They had made it outside, reunited, and there was a chance they could escape. Ethan collapsed into the passenger seat, groaning in pain, blood seeping through his shirt. "Sarah, I thought I lost you," he breathed, relief spilling between each shaky word. "You didn't. None of us are lost," she said, gripping his hand tightly, feeling the warmth spread between them. Danny slid into the driver's seat, peering back at the chaos still unfolding in the warehouse. "We have to go." His voice was sharp with urgency as he turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared alive, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Hold on." With a jolt, they were off, rattling down the street, leaving the madness behind. The sounds of the warehouse fading into a distant memory replaced by the echo of sirens growing closer, a sound that promised safety and justice. As they drove, the adrenaline slowly seeped away, replaced by the harsh reality of what they had just escaped. Sarah caught Ethan's gaze in the rearview mirror, his eyes tired but alive. She felt a lump rise in her throat, all the pain and fear they had endured collapsing into a raw mix of tears and relief. "Please," Ethan began, his voice shaky as he reached for her hand again. "I'm so sorry for everything. I thought I could handle it, and I was a fool. You were right, I let my life spiral out of control." "Ethan," she said, her voice soft but firm. "We have a long road ahead. There are things we need to deal with. But we're together now. That's what matters." He looked as though he was about to reply, but Danny cut in, his voice heavy with urgency. "There's still a lot we don't know about what went down in there. We can't let our guard down yet." Sarah nodded, turning her gaze to the street ahead. Morning light began to break on the horizon, illuminating a path toward recovery. She felt both fear and excitement seize her heart. They were all still here, alive, and finally had the opportunity to rebuild. And while the road might be difficult, there was hope mingling with the pain. Maybe, just maybe, they would emerge from this storm stronger than ever. "We'll face it all together," Sarah vowed. "We just need to take it one day at a time." And as they drove into the dawn, she realized that sometimes a dark night could lead to a brilliant morning if only you had the courage to face it. Now it was time for new beginnings. Make it count. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Every bit helps, and your support makes this community thrive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let's connect and share our thoughts. And lastly, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.